Live. Well, now we're live and don't have a bunch of uh, fanfare here. Put a scroll at the bottom of the screen. But thanks everybody for joining us. We're going to continue here on Tuesdays to go live for a little bit, talking about, well, in this case, SHOT Show, results from SHOT Show. But let's see how it goes. So, got Clover joining me from Texas. Just got back from SHOT Show 2023. I think you literally got back yesterday.
Yep.
So figure go live here like we've been doing on Tuesdays, kind of preparing for the show. Continue that and see who all might show up for a daytime conversation. There's Milsurp out there. Welcome. And yeah, so I don't know, you had a longer time in the vehicle and uh I'll let you start out with what was your impressions of the show? What have you been thinking about talking about as a wrap up, or have you?
Haven't really thought about it too much. I mean, definitely the follow ups. The after action. What do you go through? I mean, there's a lot of that that's uh, that's been going through my head. Um, there was a definitely an information. What would be the word? Like an information download, right?
Well,
Um,
overload. I mean, you
yeah,
couldn't.
yeah, yeah,
There's
yeah.
no group of people. I don't think no organization could even try to contain all the data that happened this week.
Yeah, right. I'll be odd to pause every now and then to blow my nose, but anyway, um, yeah, yeah, a lot of stuff, man. So that has to be kind of divided out into sections, like you know, and I haven't done it yet, but uh, you got to divide out like what you do, right? I mean, there's the things on the advertising, the sponsor side. There's things on the T&E side. There's simply the simple, scheduling out the podcast guests. There's so many things now that you've talked to those people, you've got that information, you've looked at all the products, you talked with those companies, you've done all the things, you met your goals, right, for SHOT Show. But now that you've met your goals, now you got to put the plan in action to what would be the word, to capitalize, to seize on those goals, right?
Oh, if you're waiting for me, I'm getting coffee. I'll come back.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I'll have to go get mine here in a little bit too. I understand. So yeah, I can keep vamping. But yeah, for me, it's just a matter. I mean, some companies check all of those boxes, or whatever. It's like, oh wow, they've got a product, so I've got to get everything arranged for that. Oh, also want them to come on and be a guest. Oh, also they're interested in sponsorship and ad spots. So it's like I gotta try to go through in the business cards and the notes and everything you do during a SHOT Show play into that. But now I've got to go in and lay all of that out, and it's almost like I don't want to say it's a flow chart. But it's definitely going to be some type of like a spreadsheet type scenario, right? And
Some kind of process, right? Like a yeah,
right,
and,
yeah,
and
yeah.
visually you're gonna think of it, but yeah, there's
Oh,
definitely parts to it.
so one thing is replying to comments that's happened throughout the week. I mean, we've had a week, or I've had 11 days, right? I've had 11 days away from any type of computer. I've had the phone, and I've been able to do some things through the phone as it's come in. But as far as organization and notification and structure, the phone kind of sucks in that respect. So, there's all kinds of things that from being absent 11 days now has to, okay, I got to try to get caught up on that stuff. And then also, I didn't even mention the content filmed at SHOT Show, whatever that might be, booth review, range day video, whatever the case is. I've dropped shorts all last week, of course, with the show, but there's those things that have to be released too. But those things are going to come before the actual contact. Most of the people that I talked with this year, you always kind of hit them up about, or fill them out about how they're going to, when you should follow up, that sort of thing. And most of them about 2 weeks after the show. So this coming Friday, of course, will be 1 week, and then so sometime mid late next week, is when that sort of stuff seems to come out. And I see you got your notebook there. You've already started making notes, so cool.
Well, yeah. So go get your coffee if you want. So that's one of the things you kind of brought up, and I was doing the same thing. So we're on similar wavelengths, but obviously we're not. It's not like we're walking in lockstep and we don't have the same ways of doing it or whatever, but we're doing the same stuff. So I take a notebook usually. I stick some of the shop show stickers on it so that I know which one it is. Put a note on there in case I forget which years the stickers are. Give myself a couple of pages, and I had a show last night, and I'll do another one on Thursday, just during prime time, right? To do the same kind of thing, except with a bunch of people that showed up. So I invited everybody last night. I guess you were still driving, but just everybody I shook hands with at SHOT Show essentially, and Toby, Chief Fires, Ghost, and Snob, and somebody else show up. All showed up, and we chatted for a bit. And like I say, I'll do another one on Thursday. But in order to kind of think about the show, like you just said, from the various facets, I'm going to say, I made some notes here, and then a couple of notes while we were on the phone, or excuse me, while we were on the call last night, and I figure we can address some of these. So the way I look at it, Clover kind of mentioned some things, but we got um, uh, videos, right? A lot of us go to SHOT Show to as channels or whatever, so we're going to be getting videos and pictures, I guess. Making contacts, right? Clover kind of touched on funding for doing stuff. We got to pay for it. I'm a big fan of patches. There's lots of ways that those weave in there. But there's some other things, right? So I think I said contacts. So we got observations, right? So you have so much data you can get from SHOT Show, and I'll talk about different layers of this, but what you can observe and what you can gain from that observation is insane. You can test your own skills, right? We have a bunch of, we spent weeks, it's kind of going over things you could do, but when you're there, you're actually testing those things. One thing I think now that I'm saying this that we didn't really talk about too much is having alternative plans and then having some kind of a system in place where, let's say all your first plans worked. Are you going to intentionally try your backups just to make sure you're able? But anyway, testing skills, a massive opportunity for that. Coaching. So we're doing coaching here, but even hopefully, if you're part of this, you're coaching the next wave, right? We're not going to be able to coach everybody. Not everybody's interested in listening to us. So each of us teaching each other is how we make this work. So you got to jump right in at year one and get into coaching. You're coaching your people that you're working with. You're coaching with your own team. You're coaching your family. You're coaching your audience. You're coaching your peers, right? You got the tech. So there's layers of tech. I'm using new phones this year. That was a big chunk of my show this year. Everybody's got their tech curve and where they're at on that curve. And then, if you're ambitious with that or if you're leaning back, I've been using this phone for a long time. And for a lot of ways, I'll still champion that concept. But these things are magic. These things are magic, these new phones. Growth. Opportunities to grow. You can wait around to grow or you can choose to grow, and this is a show where you can say, okay, this is what I did before and this is what I'm going to do. So let's talk about growth and then understanding. Like, again, you're going to observe a lot, but you're going to know so much more about our culture, our community, our industry, your peers, the people that you looked up to or respected, or maybe you don't anymore. You're going to understand so much, and you got to take some time to absorb that and to do something with that. So that's what I'm trying to do with this. I'm sure Clover's trying to do the same thing. I don't know if you're back yet, but that's sort of the stuff that I've been thinking. This is sort of my notes from the ride home. Like, if I was thinking of SHOT Show as a spectrum, like there's so much. Like, people are going to look at my patch stuff and go, "Oh, that all like I did was patches. I can do patches when I'm sleeping. Standing upside down when I'm sleeping. Patches are nothing." But some people don't even know how much patches can be, how big a thing they can be. But anyway, that's a whole layer there. But there's so much more going on at SHOT Show, and this is just the stuff I thought about. So if you were thinking of all these different facets or spectrum of SHOT Show, what am I missing on here that was in your realm? Maybe something about the travel. I've got travel down. You're still playing with that, and you've got different inputs to your travel.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
I have whole websites. I have whole social channels to my travel. So when I decide to push my travel stuff out, it's already there. Like some people aren't even thinking about that you're spending a lot of money and time traveling either to this event or others, or just doing your projects in general. And that's an element that's monetizable. It's an element that can be related to by lots of people, no matter if they're interested in your topic of interest or not. And you got the food, and then the vehicles and the gear and everything that goes along with travel. It's a common denominator amongst a lot of people. So a lot of potential there for talking about our travel. Anyway, just coming up with stuff. I could probably come up with stuff all day if we sat here and think about all the different ways that we can get from SHOT Show. Anyway, so that was my kind of guide for this aftershot kind of thought process. Where were you at with again, you kind of talked about following up with leads, and then getting back to the scheme of things. What about all this data? I've got mine here because this thing is huge compared to my old phones as far as like how much storage it can hold. It doesn't even flinch with the entire SHOT Show coverage. I got 800 videos of knives on here, or at least 800 files from the day that I took videos of knives. It doesn't even flinch. It's not. I mean, that's probably larger than that whole phone, and it's just a portion of this phone. But I still have. Well, I have it plugged in now, but I still have a new hard drive that I can plug into this, and I pulled every file out, so every file is on here and on a hard drive. What do you do about file duplication, backup, and then how do you have a process for how you're going to start processing them?
Yeah, I use a USB drive that plugs directly into my phone, and then from there it gets into a external drive here. I haven't started to do any of that yet.
Yeah, I do the same. So then, I mean, I just put it in a folder, January, and then sometimes SHOT Show stuff I'll put in a separate folder, SHOT Show day 1, day 2, day 3, something like that. Do you keep notes of like everything that you got in there, or do you just start at the top and make videos as you go down? How do you have a system or a process that you've come up with for making sure you don't forget any files in there, or what's the word, like prioritizing them or anything?
Yeah, typically I go in like chronological and then just walk backwards, through it. And then that's normally how I do it when you're talking about show footage. I usually do that. If there's multiple videos having to do with like the same product or the same company or whatever, which seldom is that the case, but if that ever happens, then I'll skip. So like, if company A, I've got, 2, let's say, videos that need to be done. And then there's, company B, company C, company D. I'll shift that. So I'll go one video from company A, and then I'll go B, then maybe C, and then hit the other one on A, right? Just to mix it up, just so I don't have, multiples from that one company in a row, just to kind of keep things fresh. And also, when you release things, if you're talking about breaking things out and you have multiple videos on the same thing, you got to be careful with it because it's people can see one and think, "Oh, I've already watched that," right? Um, they don't realize it's a different video. It's about a different model or it's about a different aspect of the company or whatever the case may be. Um, and maybe they don't click it because like they thought they've already watched it. So by splitting that out, right? Um, arranging that around, I think it does make a difference. Now, there's also something to be said about commitment. Um, if you go in and people, are wanting you to film or whatever the case may be, I mean, they may want that released, right? Um, at a certain time, before a certain time, and that may kind of change up the goals too. I mean, company F, for example, or G or H, may be one that, you end up releasing it first simply because, you kind of made a commitment or a promise to them to get that out before a certain time. So it's like, okay, since I'm time crunched on that, I need to get this out, right? Um, there's a lot of factors I think that can go into that.
Well, that being said, I haven't had, and I've had a couple of things over the years, not at SHOT Show, but maybe if you're at some place or you're meeting with somebody and they go, "Hey, I'm gonna let you see something, but don't show this until July or something." Like I've had that. And I've had problems with it. Like I didn't get told don't do this before SHOT Show, and then I did it before SHOT Show or something. But how often do you encounter situations where there's like either an expiration date, like get this out before, or don't show this until, compared to all the other footage and stuff? I mean, obviously that's your experience, but
I didn't. Was that a question?
Oh, sorry. I'm saying, yeah. How often is there some kind of time restraint, like a don't do this until?
Oh, very
do
rarely.
this
Yeah.
before?
It
Yeah, I was
very,
gonna say.
yeah.
I was just making sure nothing's changed, but I mean that is something to keep in mind, and because it happens so rarely, it's probably something to keep in mind, right? So you don't forget that every once in a while that can happen. Imagine, do you keep notes like while you're, well, like going around, let's say Monday, and you start doing stuff. Um, Even if you've got like, I'm going to go here and then I'm going to go here, but on your way over there, you find XYZ, and you're like, oh snap, I'm taking a quick video of this, and that those targets opportunity or whatever they're called will just sort of happen. So now you start to accumulate those, and by day 2 or 3, you've got, let's say 6 or 8 of these things that you didn't plan on, but they were convenient. You grabbed them, made a new friend or something. Somebody asked you to check this out for them. Do you keep notes or something like that, or is that just in your head, or do you keep some kind of process or system so that you don't forget about those, or that something like that where there might be a time constraint there where you weren't expecting it doesn't get lost or forgotten about?
He ghosted me.
Well, I'm just saying, did you do anything to leave notes for stuff that's unexpected, or for these unanticipated deadlines or time constraint? Like, do you keep a notepad with you, or do you?
Yes, I got notes. I've got notes in a pad as well as on business cards. Yeah. Yeah, almost every business card has some type of mark or circle or word, or sometimes email addresses or phone numbers. Almost every business card that I get, I do not have clean business cards. Like if you grab my stack of business cards, talking about the ones I've collected, right, as well as my own in some instances, but the ones I've collected, um, yeah, they've got crap wrote all over them or whatever, right? Um, like I drew, um, what did I do? So I got 2 cards, like, from one company. Give you an example. I got one company, had to meet with 2 people because the person that would be best on their podcast and the person that I needed to talk to for, some T&E stuff were 2 different people, right? Um, so I put T&E, wrote with a Sharpie, right? T&E on the card for the person for that, and then I wrote podcast on the card for the other, right? Um I've done things where it's like, okay, I don't need to forget this guy's name or whatever. Um, so I've circled the name, for example, on the business card, and that draws my eyes to that section of the business cards because not all business cards are great or perfect or anything like that. Sometimes the information's all jumbled up in them, and so when you're just flipping through, another thing is there's companies there. These kind of notes I make on business cards too. There's companies there that it is their marketing agencies are the ones in the booth talking with media, right? It's not somebody from the company. And when they give you a card, it's like Bob's marketing agency, And you're like, then you get home and you're like, oh crap, who is this guy?
Yeah, it has nothing to do with such and such knives or
Like
something, optics
now,
or whatever.
yeah. Now you could go to bobsmarketingagency.com, right? Sometimes and look through the list of their clients and go, oh, okay, it'll refresh your memory, right? Oh, yeah, I talked to them in the so and so booth, right? But why not, if that's the case, you ever get a card like that before you walk away, take a Sharpie and write the company name on the card. That's like, that way you easily know you don't have to go do that. So yeah, I make notes all the time on all kinds of stuff.
So I usually like to have a notepad that I'll get at dollar store, so I don't go nuts with it. But then tried something a little bit different this year. I went with this expandable dealie, and then I almost always do this. I put all my business cards in one of these things, and then I don't double them. So these are the fronts and backs. But because I do them for each day or whatever, or like in this case, all the good ones, people I want, I know, or whatever, going to contact, I'll keep up front here, just people that I met, let's say. But then like all the Monday ones are on Monday, Tuesday. So that helps me keep track of them because I mean, I don't talk to that many people. So, I can keep track of, if I talk to this person from this company, in this case, I could write on the back of the card, but if it was like this, what you're talking about is tough. So what I end up doing is at the end of the night each night, and I ended up doing this live this year, is I'll just make some notes. Normally, this notes would be in a notepad, a spiral notebook, so that I wouldn't lose them. But in this case, I had to do it on just random pieces of paper that I found at the hotel. I just couldn't get to. I didn't have a car, so I couldn't get to a place to get a dollar store to buy a notepad. But then I just stuck these in with each day, so each day's got a couple of pages of my notes from the end of the night. When you go back to make sense of this, like if I tried to think, if you asked me right now what happened on Monday, I'd have to spend an hour trying to think about retracing my steps, and I'd still have gaps. So, this will help me kind of keep track of the week in general. How do you keep track of your notes to prioritize or to make them, like useful to go back and reference? When they're on business cards, is it like stacks of cards? Is it by day? Is it something like this? Is it some people staple cards to a page of notes or paperclip?
I usually start with the cards and move some cards into like handwritten. So there's something about writing it down.
Like in a notepad or on a piece of paper or something.
Yeah, and then from there it just kind of gets into then it gets into digital, like with a planner or a notepad or something along those lines. Yeah.
Yeah, I won't go much further than this writing, but I agree with you. For me, I don't know if this is for real or if it's just our generation or whatever, but writing it with a pen on a piece of paper is essentially carving it in your brain. Like you can remember writing it down or whatever, or like something about the, as opposed to typing, which I don't know why, but I can type stuff all the time. I'm not going to recollect everything I've ever typed. But if I'm writing something down like that, especially if it's weird this time, because one of them's on the back of like a menu and the other one's on the back of some thing that the hotel handed out that had a blank page on the back, that I could use. So I just happened to be able to associate that, so I can piece those out or whatever a little easier. They like I say, they're more permanent in my head if I had to sit back and think about them. And I can think about the gaps. I remember writing down, and I couldn't remember. Okay, I left this person and I walked up over here, but I got 2 videos filmed. Like what order did those videos happen? Which booth did I hit first? I don't really care about remembering that, but I know where that glitch is. I remember that's on Tuesday at this time. I don't care to try to remember which one necessarily, but it helps me to understand where those gaps are, so I could just keep moving and not think about the whole totality of the show. If that makes sense. I don't know. Do you think of the show now as Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or do you think of it as a big mess? Do you think of it as conversations with individuals? How do you go forward after that?
You broke up.
Oh, my internet's breaking up.
Yeah, you did.
How do you?
Go ahead.
It could be my audio. I'm having to plug everything back in here. I guess I'm asking, with your system or with your experience at SHOT, like how do you manage it all? How do you keep track of all the stuff that you got through at SHOT? Is it something you reference more than just in the immediate here, or will it be something that you go back to in the future?
Yeah, I don't know that I put a lot of effort into. Yeah, I don't know that I put a lot of effort into living in the past, right? Into backtracking and making correlations like that. Like, oh, this all happened because of SHOT. I don't know that I do that. Yeah, I don't think I do anything like that. Like, so, if something happens and, I get a guest on or T&E or get something happen later on in the year, let's say, October, November, whatever. Yeah, I definitely don't go back and readjust notes or do anything like that. Like, for me, it's about moving forward, I guess.
Oh yeah, I was thinking more like I don't readjust from any notes or anything like that either. I
Yeah.
might use my notes in the future to try to remember if I met somebody
Yeah,
before or
yeah,
like
yeah.
how did this
Referencing
go
them.
down.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I was
Reference
thinking, I
material.
guess
Yeah.
I'm thinking more of like, let's say you're at a booth and you took a video. Like I was hanging out with Toby for a minute, and he went
Uh-huh.
into the Nemo booth. And if I'm hanging out with somebody who does content, because I don't, right? I do other stuff. So if I'm hanging out with somebody or you or anybody really that's doing content and you're fiddling with something, I'll take pictures of you fiddling with it, especially if I know that's your thing and you could appreciate some B-roll of, you don't have a chance to get a camera of taking pictures of you doing stuff like pulling stuff off the wall at SHOT Show. So I'll take pictures like that and then eventually email them to you. Um, but that's the thing. Like, let's say you're walking along and something happens. Somebody says, "Hey, look at this and how clever this is." That little weird breakdown thing from B&T. The handle, the grip breaks down and the mag well breaks down. Did you look at that at all?
No, I did not actually.
So that's something that's not necessarily in your wheelhouse. Let's say somebody
Yeah.
pulled you over, you took a look at it, you made a quick video. Well, it's not in your agenda of things to do. I guess what I'm wondering is, do you try to keep track of everything you got at SHOT Show so that you got it as a resource? Let's say in October, it comes up in a conversation or whatever, and you go, "Oh, you know what? I do have some B-roll of that somewhere." Is that something that you what's the word? Like you have readily accessible, or would you need to like just dig into a hard drive of SHOT Show and start roaming around? Like, how do you keep your SHOT Show stuff as reference for the future, or is it like SHOT Show's over, let's keep going?
Yeah, I don't keep it as much reference in the future. No. No. I mean,
Okay.
it's there. I mean, there are things available. Yeah. If I need it, but seldom do I need it because, things change too. I mean, I can't already I'm home and I haven't done a whole lot, right? I mean, I literally fired up this laptop s- uh 10 minutes before I went live with you, and it hasn't been fired up in 11 days, right? Um, and already there's things I've seen at SHOT Show. I thought about stuff I've seen, whatever. That designs have changed, release. I mean, things have changed. You know what I mean? So, um, being able to go back, I mean, it's kind of hard to reference things sometimes, depending on what it is, right? Like the thing you're talking about, for example, especially a lot of the newer stuff, right? Like who knows? Like the bullpup revolver, for example, was a little disappointing. All they had was literally a little 3D printed thing there with that. But um, who knows? A year from now, it's like, that company may be defunct, and that was, there's not even any need for that, or maybe the design is so radically different that the notes you took, the footage you took, everything you did with that little prototype. It's like, what's the point? I mean, other than an archival thing, if you was to go back and go, hey, look at what it started out as, if you're doing that. But if you're trying to relate it to the current lineup or anything like that, can be difficult. I've had that happen at other shows too, though. It's not That's not exclusive to SHOT, where you film it and then the production models hit and they're different. And it really shows in the comments because people will start buying things and then they'll hit YouTube, they'll look at the video and they'll go, "Oh wait, hold on a minute. Mine has X, Y, and Z. Yours has A, B, C. What's the deal here?" Well, because the one in this video is, was at a show before production models were released. So um, you get some weirdness like that if you start trying to correlate the past to the present to the future.
Yeah, see, I think that I value that. I think that's what the internet's all about, because otherwise you're just looking at catalogs all the time. You're just looking at only what's new and no one knows the history or where stuff came from. So that's, I guess, one of the reasons I'm asking. And, everybody runs their channel different. Everybody's got different, whatever, different parameters or scope or whatever the words are. And yeah, I would value having, like, I've got my footage from the Zip, like when I was talking to the guy from Zip, whatever year that was, must have been 10 or something, because it was in Sands. But anyhow, so if I ever want to bring up anything about Zip or any of those things, like the Taurus 1210 gauge or whatever they made one year, I can potentially go back, find the hard drive, find the folder, find the day, grab that. But I guess the reason I know I've got them is the way I'll go through Monday and I'll name all the videos. This is a video of you know, the Ruger this is a video of the whatever trigger group that, and what I take video of, like what I point my camera at changes. But since my process is to go back and name all the files afterwards in the folder that they're in, and they're in the folder of the day that they're in, I guess I just kind of know, I also make a notepad file, and I just take a copy of all the file names and put them into this notepad file so that I have a searchable, both by file name and by, text in a file. I have a way of knowing what videos I've made or exist. Then of course those are backed up or whatever on different drives and in the cloud or whatever. I don't use them, but if I ever needed them, I could. I mean, I shouldn't say I don't use them all the time, but every once in a while I want something, and I don't have to go. Okay, I have to go to January's folder of files and start looking, or try to remember what day I saw that on. I'll have some clues for myself for in the future. But that's the thing. If you're, I guess I look at it as more like, oh, if I'm going to talk about you talked about that revolver thing, even if it fails, if you're going to talk about items that failed at SHOT Show, being able to go back and grab that file is, I don't know. I guess it's just it's a resource to have versus going to the internet and just grabbing a file off the internet that would be equivalent, right? Some archive of whatever happened this year at SHOT. Like, in other words, you don't have to have that file. There's going to be a copy of it on the internet somewhere. All right. Well,
I was muted. Sorry. Yeah, you're an archival type guy, so that's going to depend too. I mean, just look at the projects and the other things that you've done and you do, right? So, you got to realize
it's
some
just kind of
people, some people are not into that. They're like, it's the future. I'm moving forward. Let's do this. And so, having pages and drive, and I've got plenty of stuff, and I'm not you as far as the archival, aspect of things, and I've still got tons and tons, terabytes and upon terabytes and pages upon pages of data and stuff. So
neither one of us throw any of these files away. It's not, there's no gain in throwing the files away, right?
Right.
Let's see. So as far as we kind of talked about a little bit about how we deal with the stuff, as far as, let's just talk about SHOT Show, I guess, in general. We've been taking pictures on our phones. It sounds like we both take a copy of our data on our phone, all the videos and pictures and whatever else, and put that onto a hard drive. And then I'm assuming we both duplicate that hard drive so that now we got it in like 2 permanent places, and then the phone becomes a temporary. We can start to delete that, or not as worried about the files on the phone anymore. And then as we move on, those files just get left behind in some kind of archive, like we just discussed, if we ever go back and look at them again. Aside from moving the files over, is there anything else that you do as far as, I don't know, like do you get any paperwork or your notes and stuff? Do you do any kind of procedure, or is there any kind of ritual with your written notes or the paper and stuff that you pick up along the way that like isn't a keychain or a patch or something that you might put on a wall or use? I mean, assuming you pick up brochures and things besides business cards.
No, I don't pick up many brochures. I may have picked up a couple of things, but not much. I'm trying to even think. Like right now, I can't even think of anything. Right, but remember, I just got back last night, so I haven't processed a whole lot. No, no. I mean, I can't think of anything. And I did not pick up a lot of swag, a lot of patches, a lot of stickers at all this year. And I'm not saying right or wrong. I mean, everybody's got to do their own thing. But my deal is I was not in that mode. I didn't have room in my brain pan to be thinking or worrying about that. There was way too many parts and pieces and things moving around, and especially things that were unforeseen. Right, going into SHOT Show, like I could have planned to the max, and we get there on Saturday and get a phone call, and the whole world just turned upside down. Right, so yeah, that's one thing that never really was a strong suit with, picking up any type of, I don't want to say swag, but any type of stuff. I was disappointed they did not have uh the notebooks and things. Um, but yeah, yeah, I never have been big on anything maybe other than the patches. I mean, I would pick up a few stickers here and there and a few odd and end things. Um, but I mean, I can't think of anything that I picked up that's played. You know what I'm saying? That's played into any of my content.
So I try not to pick stuff up, especially when you're walking along and somebody will have like oh, here's our price list, or here's like a bunch of pictures of our product. Like, well, thanks, I just took a bunch of digital pictures of your product. But they don't know who's walking around, and if somebody's walking around from a store who doesn't have a phone or anything and does need to know, what reference or have something in the shop, that's what those handouts are for. Plus, it's just a good idea probably to leave something physical with people in a show like that. You spent a lot of money to have the booth. But yeah, nobody wants to carry that stuff around. I end up with a couple of things anyway, though, because one, you're going to be polite. Sometimes you're having a conversation with somebody and they offer you something, you're just going to take it. It's not that big a deal to carry around a piece of paper. But there are things where you want the piece of paper, it's useful. Ideally, something that's like a 4x6 or something with all the details on it, a little bit bigger than a business card, but not a full sheet of paper. Um, but what I end up doing is putting them in that corrugated, whatever that thing is, that book of pockets that I've got there. And as long as you don't pick up too much stuff, it's easy enough to file stuff away in there. Here's the thing, though. I don't want to discourage people from using a show as an opportunity. So if you're a gun shop, one of the reasons people walk around with those big what are they called? Milk crates on wheels, or even some people had suitcases on wheels, is it's cheaper than shipping, especially if you're driving to the show. You drag around one of them suitcases, you put a big box or another bigger suitcase up in the checked bag area there, and just keep shuttling up your handouts and your brochures and things that you'll be able to hand out throughout the year, and you'll save yourself a bunch on shipping. Also, it's just neat to have the swag for giveaways. If somebody's buying a Smith & Wesson, and you can give a little squishy thing or whatever, like a keychain or a patch or a couple of stickers or something. It's just cool. So there's that opportunity. Same thing with people like Gizzard and well, you've done it, and others where you include some of the swag you pick up at SHOT, and when you're when you're sending stuff out or doing giveaways and stuff throughout the year. So there's an opportunity there, but it does. I would suggest some strategy. Going around carefree and lightweight all day, and then as you're heading out at the end of the day, remember where the good stuff is, or make some arrangements with people. Hey, I'm going to come back and grab a stack of those stickers at the end of the day, and then follow through and come vacuum that stuff up on your way back to the car. And that's about the least amount of hassle, most amount of return on the time spent, because you are going to a place, and as long as you're driving, or even if you are flying, it's nothing to fill a $14 fixed rate box. It'll be waiting for you at your home before your post office before you probably get back, depending on how you travel.
Right.
Or at least by the time you're coming up for air. But so I'm not going to discourage people, but at the same time, yeah, you can get extra tired carrying around stuff if you just. I mean, I still can't understand. I mean, I guess it's people that work at gun shops and just don't think about it. There's so many people walking around with those free bags that they give out, which almost always have some kind of rope or strap, like a uncomfortable rope or strap kind of thing to hold on to it by, and it starts getting weighted down with all kinds of pieces of paper, and they're just, by noon they're walking around struggling with these, but they're walking around paper, like literally weighted down. Let's see, what else are we missing? If there's people out there who went to the show that are obviously either in the mode of trying to decipher it all, or coming back up for air after a week of being off work or on vacation or away from people. So any tips after so many travels and extended stays on getting back accustomed or getting your channel back in gear?
Being able to have some kind of break, I think helps me, and the drive back is one of those things. I know that you talk about it regularly, and I do too, about how you have the opportunity, especially if you're a passenger, how you can be reflecting, thinking about things, wargaming. Um, I took a different approach, man. I mean, we got to Flagstaff. Flagstaff was freaking snowed in and beautiful, cold as it could be. Um, you know, there was all types of sights to see and, different things along the way. Because we had that extra day or extra night or whatever you want to call it, we got to check out the Antique Arms Show for the first time. I mean, it was a get away from it, right? It's like information overload, disconnect, right? And then now, literally, I mean, quite literally, like I said, 10, 15 minutes before, we went live, I plugged the laptop in here and turned it on, right? So, like, I'm just now plugging back in. And so, um, for me, I like that because it gives me a time to step away from it just for a second. And then that way I'm not, if I, again, as we've talked about with note taking and stuff like that, if I've taken good notes, if I've documented things well along the way, because there is something to be said about forgetting things, right? But I trust myself enough to be like, okay, well, I've taken enough notes and all of this. This is not going anywhere. There's nothing I can do until we get home. Like I'm not putting up videos or making calls or sending emails to companies or doing any of that stuff until I get home. So let's just enjoy the ride, right? Let's just unplug and uh, and go. I don't know if that kind of answers what you're talking about, but that's where I'm at.
I got to find my mute. Yeah, so I was the passenger also, except my trip was only not that many hours. So yeah, I just basically have the notepad there and try to unzip or let it go backwards without rushing it, like just kind of let the tangles unwind or whatever, and make some notes. So I really appreciated that. We were listening to a book on tape, which I don't think was the best way to do it. For if I was trying to do like what you're saying, just kind of remove the self from the show and just go do something else, I guess that might have worked, and that probably worked for him driving. But and he's driving, so I'm not gonna whatever mess with the driver after a week like that. I understand that I'm normally the driver, so I totally understand. You just want to do whatever gets you to the end of the line. But uh well, I guess it depends. If you got a lot of business going on, then I don't think there's much to gain from saying, "Oh, the show's over. I'm gonna take some time off." I think you're gonna want to keep sharp, right? You want to have some kind of a process or system to pull as much of that stuff down while it's still fresh, and at least try to re-record it all before you take that break. I see the gain in having some break though, especially with as much uh, potential whatever download or whatever information overload you get for a week. But I think most people are just going to forget that stuff by nature, right? Whatever that part of our brain is that doesn't let us retain everything, unless you got a photographic memory. Can you imagine having a photographic memory at SHOT Show? But we're going to naturally forget all that stuff. So I think what ends up happening is just people's regular life comes in and does what you're saying, kind of just lets you forget about most of it.
Mute button. Yeah, I don't have a problem remembering things. So
Let's see. coverage itself. This is a unique show because it's the big one and because of all the connotation or reputation it has. There's going to be a bunch of people who just want it to be over because they didn't get to go and they hate it. So they're going to do nothing but gripe about it. They're already griping about it. They griped before it happened, and they'll gripe in the middle of the year just so that everybody's clear that they hate the show so much. And then there's people that dig it, right? And then there's people that are paid to be there, and they're going to forget about it as soon as possible because they've got other things they're going to be paid to, be worried about. So where are you with coverage, getting it out there, urgency? This is advice for people, not just our experience, right? This is people that are out there,
Right.
right, that are trying to decide what to do with what they've got now because they spend a lot of time and money on this.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to depend on the person, right? There's people that are going to ride it all year long. And that's fine because that's the way their channel works and like the flow of their channel or whatever, right? For me, I'm going to have these people back. I'm going to have people on as a guest. I'm going to have products coming out of T&E. So anything as far as the footage, pictures, anything that's happened at SHOT Show, I mean, in the next, it's got to drop in the next couple of weeks. I mean, it's got to. And anything that I've done in that capacity, we talked about earlier. We kind of talked about 5 time frames and what was expected from companies, and you know, they expect it to be fairly quick. I mean, if you're doing something at SHOT Show, I mean, they asked, and had I said, "Oh, I'll drop this 6, 8 months down the road," they'd have been like, I know the look on what the look on their face would have been, had I said something like that. So it was like, "Yeah, well, I'll get it out in the next couple of weeks." So they're like, "Oh, okay, good." Um, so for me, it's pretty quick. Now, again, I've got other content that is coming out of the work and the connections and the stuff at SHOT Show that fill up the rest of the year. If you're somebody that only does T&E related stuff, right? And you're using SHOT Show to set that up for the entire year, then that that might not be the case. I mean, maybe you do drop a video over in October or whatever. I think we talked about that previously. That depending on how you work that booth interview or that booth video, you know, if you don't mention SHOT Show, which I think is a disservice to a SHOT Show, but if you don't mention SHOT Show, you just say we're here, talking with so and so company. Well, yeah, that video can pretty much drop anytime. If you're talking about an established product, again, going back to the products, if you're talking about an established product that is already in production and shipping, if you're there and you're talking about something that's prototyped or something like that, going to SHOT Show, talking about something prototyped, and then releasing that in September or October, when it absolutely doesn't jive with the production model, this, that, and the other. I mean, that potentially could be problematic. But again, that has more to do with just being mindful and careful what you pick to cover at SHOT Show, right? So the people that do that are probably, I'm guessing, because I'm not that type of person, but they're probably, or I don't do that type of uh, content strategy anyway. But those people, I'm guessing in their mind, they're thinking about all the little pitfalls, side steps, potholes, and things like that, what they need to do. Uh, so, yeah.
Yeah, I think again, there's different. I'm trying to think of all the people who I'm personally aware of and the way they're running their channels and stuff. But if it's like say something reloading, and I don't pay that much attention to reloading stuff there, but there must have been reloading stuff there. So if you're getting B-roll of a machine running, well, I guess now that I'm thinking about it, I got B-roll of a bunch of reloading stuff. So you get B-roll of some equipment, you're gonna be able to use that forever. You get some kind of a robot arm moving around. If it has something to do with what you're doing, if you get think of the Taurus handgun display, like that big curvy display of handguns. It's pretty impressive. You get a pan or whatever of a video of going down that, you're going to be able to use that all over the place. So that's, I guess, what I'm thinking is, you've got pieces, elements from your SHOT Show content. you've got knowledge and um, little stuff that you may have discovered. You're walking from here to there, and you find out that Cricut makes a little version of a Mosin Nagant, and it's a picture or two, but that's something that isn't necessarily timely. It's not like people are going to go, "Oh, I'm learning this from an event that isn't next weekend or last weekend. I don't want to know that information anymore." So those kind of things, you don't necessarily have to get them out now, but you can get them out 8 months from now, and you're still getting content from SHOT Show or use from your expense to go to SHOT Show or your time spent, what you discovered there, and you're not trying to put it all out on some kind of schedule now so that people are going to roll their eyes and go, "Oh, everything they do now is SHOT Show."
Dang, I was muted. So you're saying they pigeonhole themselves into a SHOT Show channel? Is that kind of what you're saying?
What do you mean? No, I was trying to say that we're getting a lot of stuff at the show, and even if it's B-roll from something, or if it's like a piece of your A-roll, it can be B-roll. And
Right.
I guess just remembering that all the stuff we're getting, or that you got at SHOT Show, is not just perishable stuff that you got to decide, okay, 6 months from now I shouldn't even be considering it. That
Right.
one, you can chop it up and look at it and go, okay, this can easily go out in October. It has nothing to do with Halloween. It's just doesn't need to go out right now. And I think a lot of people, if you're looking at the reviewers or the people that are event goers, I guess, because some people are like, "Oh, I don't review the equipment. I just go to the event." And then they're just like, "Okay, here's another notch in my belt. I went to this event." And they don't even think about it again. And they often won't think about it again, right? Because they're off to the next event. But the people who are just just making a channel and are just doing their thing, uh, I just want to let them know, like, you've got a lot of content that you're creating and that you've got, and you're doing something as obvious as end of the year thing. Well, obviously you're going to put some SHOT Show stuff in there, so leave some of it as you're creating it now. Think about, what could I use at the end of the year as like a summary of SHOT Show. I might not want it right now because it's kind of too obvious. I don't need it right now, but in 8 months this will be perfect. Just, I guess that's part of what I'm trying to say is, like, whatever you're chopping up now, whatever you're labeling and putting aside, don't think of it all as perishable. Like, oh, this stuff, if you don't use it in the next 3 months, just delete the folder so you don't need it anymore.
Yeah. No, I got you. Yeah, hang on to that for sure.
Or at least, yeah, as you're chopping it up, go, "Oh, you know what? If I just chop this and this off, it's not SHOT Show anymore. It's just content about this booth." And no matter when I talk about, let's say EAA, and anytime I talk about EAA, here's their booth, right? Like, who cares what show it was from? Because it's the same booth all the shows anyway, right? And it's just, now I can show that, what's that word, like reputation, I guess, like that I was there, especially if you're standing in the booth, doing some kind of introduction. That's what I'm saying. It's like, that's not perishable. You can use that as the intro of a video 3 years from now. And if everybody just puts their files in a folder and says SHOT Show 2023, let's move on, you're not restricted to that. You take, as you're editing, remember, you can take a slice and go, "Oh, you know what, this is a great file for my intro folder," and then be filling up. I don't know, that's, I guess, a more strategy of how to get the most use out of content. But I guess that's what I was thinking about. I'm also trying to read some of the comments that are coming up. I think they're just talking about laws and stuff. Oh, all right. Mike is saying about NRAM. So,
Sorry.
and we're so. Oh, did you get sick at all?
So I'm not sick. So what happens with me, and I'm wondering, this is something I don't think we've ever discussed, was health and wellness and SHOT Show crud, have we? The only time that I was actually, I could say I was sick. Well, I guess, okay. subjective, right? Some people would be dying laying in bed and think they were dying right now. Um, I know what's going on with my body though, so I'm not concerned. Um, but the only time is before we had all the pandemic stuff hit, that SHOT Show, what was that, 2020? I came home, I swear I had the corona, you know what I mean? Because it was bad. That was the only time I've been bad. What happens with me, and it happens pretty much every year, and I'm on a vitamin regimen yearly and all this other stuff. But as we head west, right, you get into an elevation issue, temperature drops, uh, uh, humidity issues, like there's different pollens and dusts and things in the air. And once I get to Vegas, I'm fine, right? Um, and like a day later, like the first day of SHOT Show, I was a little sniffly. I was worried, but I took like some Dayquil or something, and by the end of like the first day, I was fine, right? But you also got to remember, range day happened, and we were out in the rain and the wind and everything else. So coming home was the same way. Like I was fine when we started home, but by the time I got home, well, you hear me now, coughing and nose is running, and that sort of stuff. So I'm not sick in the sense of I caught something and I've got some kind of disease and I'm dying and I'm decrepit in the bed. Now I could let it get me that way, right? Because I don't feel super great, not being able to breathe and being snotty and everything. But I know what it is, and I'm not going to slow down because of it. I'm going to push through it, and in a few days, my body will acclimate and I'll be good to go. So, but again, some people actually catch serious, stuff. Like I said, in 2020, I swear up and down I know I've had my antibodies checked for Corona in the past, and I'm pretty sure I was a very early undocumented case with that. But yeah, this year ain't that bad. It's just like I said, it's a change in environment, a quick change in environment, right? Because you got to realize, I mean, even we drove 22 hours there. So in 22 hours, the environment changed multiple times. But even coming back, I mean, we spent basically 2 days, 3 days, I guess you could say, coming back. And, you had multiple changes every stop. You had multiple changes in the environment, right? And all of that matters. Elevation is the particles of air and the or particles of stuff in the air change with elevation and everything else. So uh, yeah, just keeping that in mind. I mean, even if you're, and I'm assuming I don't remember it being as bad if I flew. The one time that I flew, I don't remember it being quite as bad. Um, but it still was a thing, right? I flew to Vegas, got out,
Well, when
had to
people fly, then they're
acclimate.
in an airplane with a bunch of people, so that's a
Well,
factor.
this is true. That could be a whole other ball of wax, right? You're in a tube with 200 other people or whatever, sharing germs. So that's true. That's very true. Either way, I mean, you've got issues. But for me, I mean, like I said, it was a driving thing. Um, I felt great when I left, and so there's no doubt it's just the changes in the locate or the environments, I should say, that we drove through. Heck, when we woke up in Flagstaff um, Saturday morning, was that Saturday morning? No, it had been Sunday morning. It was 1 degree, 1 degree. By the time we got to Winslow, which is not terribly far from Flagstaff, it was like 47 degrees. You know, like a 40-degree difference there. Um, it was just crazy stuff like that.
Did you see the sign there for the buffalo herd? You drove right past our buffalo, well, one of our buffalo herds.
No, I guess I missed it. Yeah, I guess I missed it. That sucks.
You wouldn't see it. It's barely a road sign, but yeah, we have a couple of buffalo herds in Arizona, and it's right there south of that road you're on.
Can you see
Right
them from
in
the
that area.
highway?
Yeah, maybe if they were standing there, but they're buffaloes. They
Ah,
don't stand anywhere.
right,
But I've only seen them twice, and I used to go out there all the time. But
right, right.
but I think I agree with you. This wasn't a year for the cold. I didn't see that many people getting sick. I think it's just the world getting sick for a year. We're more kind of cleansed everybody. Everybody got real healthy, got healthy habits, and then the people who are the sickliest didn't show up or aren't going to the show anymore. So definitely a change. let's talk about that a little bit as we wrap it up here. We're about to hit an hour. I don't want to make this show forever every week. So if we're
Yeah.
going to keep doing this on the
Let's do it.
weekly, we're going to do this for about an hour, and we're going to encourage people. If we haven't really chatted about this, but I'm down for doing something on the weekly to just do coaching and then channel consultations, that kind of thing. But give us some feedback on that. But the show, it was younger. It was more diverse than any other shot I've ever seen, and not weirdly awkwardly. It was just super comfortable and normal, super awesome. No one even nothing. It was super cool. More diversity with competition shooters and hunters, incorporating it all in. Military, law enforcement, not that much like animosity or weirdness. Or, I mean, I've seen some years where, I kind of mentioned this last night, where the global war on terror, when it was in full swing, like the military police thing was just a little bit different. I'm assuming with the way that defund and all that kind of weirdness can go on, like, there could be some weirdness with the military law enforcement or the law enforcement side of it. Nothing like that. Nothing weirdly the other way either. Almost no politics at all. While there were some politicians in there, they got almost no, I wouldn't say lack of respect, but no fanfare. There was hardly any celebrity, which I value.
True. Yeah.
So, I mean,
yeah,
there was some people like some wrestlers and stuff, like that kind of celebrity, maybe some musician people, but like no self-industry celebrity BS. And I think that comes with a fluctuation of like getting burned and getting just annoyed with that whole thing, and nobody walking around like, it's just such a, I think one of the best shows ever in that respect, or maybe the best show ever in that. It's hard to say that, but maybe one of the best shows ever since the before the days of that stuff becoming like drama. Anyhow, what do you think as far as your interpretations of the show?
I don't know. I'm trying to think if I've seen anybody that I would consider a celebrity, and I don't think I've seen anybody. Now, I may have seen them, just may not have recognized them or whatever. But yeah, nobody. Politicians, the only one that I seen was Lauren Boebert, and it was interesting. 'Cause I was in a booth and she walked by and had a couple guys with her. A husband and a security guard. I don't know. Maybe somebody from the NSSF escorting her around. I don't know, but there certainly wasn't an entourage. And I've seen her walking through multiple times in that particular wing of Caesars, and there was not people walking up to her that could freaking care less about Lauren Boebert, right? As much as we've heard her name in the news since she was elected years ago and everything else. And so, yeah, that was interesting. It was an observation that was made to me. It's like I had to double take. First of all, she was way shorter than I thought she was, or she appeared anyway. She's a short girl, and so I double taked on that, and I'm like, holy crap! And then the second time I seen her, it was the same thing. It's like she was kind of by herself with those two guys, and that was it, right? There just wasn't. And you would think, like with her, because she's one of them, rah rah, push back against the rhinos, political. When you talk about political polarization, right? She's one of those that a lot of Second Amendment 2A, gun people, they like to hear her talk, right? Because she says what they want to hear her say and all that kind of stuff. So it was kind of interesting to see that she didn't, at least the times I seen her, right? She didn't have the fanfare, let's say, right? And I'm like, well, that's pretty cool. People are actually paying attention to the tangible things going on with the show instead of, chasing down celebrities and stuff.
Pink is
But
saying the air in the airplane is filtered better than a car, and then getting off to a snowstorm on the other end was worse since Vegas is sunny. But I guess I'm also thinking the airport. You got all those international people just in there breathing. I mean, I'm sure they're not.
Right.
What am I trying to say? They're not fostering infections, but I'm just saying they've got as much potential there as you do. It's another factor, is all I'm saying, when you're traveling versus like a car where all you get is people at gas stations and stuff.
Right. So, talking about the show, I think that it was a great show overall. It was it was all the best parts of last year with the the feel and the vibe and the attendance and everything of like previous years. Um, it was interesting. What what I think it's one of those things where there was a year off. The next year was very slim pickings, and I think it was like people were back. They were appreciating. They understand what they lost, not with just the year completely missed, but the year that was gimped. You know, I think people understood what they lost, right? And they're like, we're getting back to normal. We're going to appreciate the interaction with people. Um, and they were hungry. They were ready to take advantage of. We've got a normal, quote unquote, normal shot show finally, right? After like 2 years, and people were ready and prepared to take advantage of that. And I think it showed. It was for me and even the companies and things I talked with were like, it's awesome. It's amazing. It's great.
Sorry, I'm eating popcorn, so I had to finish chewing for it. The I'd say the amount of people that I'm aware of, like in my, I don't even say more than just in my circles, because I pay attention to people that don't, that tell me what's up or whatever, but they don't show up at these shows or whatever. Um, the amount of success people had this year was, I don't want to say unprecedented, because there's probably been better years, but nothing, you can't take anything for granted. And the fact that there was very successful year for most people, I'd say is, uh, well, cool, but also, what is that an indication of? I mean, it's not like there's a giant fear right now. I guess there's some. It's not like the economy's great. It's kind of the opposite. So, you know what I mean? I think I'm taking that as encouragement, and I should be. I'm taking that as an optimistic sign, or is that the right word to say it?
Sorry, was in the middle of blowing my nose there. Um, yeah, it's I don't know. For a lot of people, they're not going to know. I mean, you've got the perceived. Oh man, shot show was awesome, right? Well, we're talking about a perception a few days after the show's ended, right? It's much different to say that now than to go back and then 6 months down the road or whatever. Like I said, because for a lot of us, we haven't seized on the opportunities that have presented themselves at SHOT Show yet, right? So, and this happens for companies too, right? They may have secured some deals, whatever. Well, contracts have to be written and signed, and checks have to be mailed here and there, and whatever the case may be, right? So you've got this perception during SHOT Show, and then a few days after that then has to manifest or be realized a little bit later down the road. So, I guess for a lot of us, we'll see. I don't see any reason to think that, a certain percentage of it, yeah, is going to fall apart and fall away. It always does. But I don't think it's going to be enough to say, oh, well, that just sucked. I mean, Shot Show seemed great at the time. It seemed awesome. And now, here I'm sitting twiddling my thumbs and nothing has worked out. Um, I think I think the results or the what word did I use earlier? Results is a good one. I think the results of what happens from SHOT Show, I think easily will uphold the fact that it was a great show. Um, what I liked about the show, and also what aggravated me to an extent about the show, especially I've seen people that went in 2020 and there was no after events. Um, also seen some newbies that went they made, and I tried to get them to go, and they made no after events. That's a whole other thing that we have talked about and will in the future. Um, but more importantly, the after events were back without a doubt, back and in force. And call them parties, whatever, you want to call them, I guess. Um, and it was interesting, not just with the after events, but with just the overall aspect of the show. Like you were talking about with Toby, I think earlier, G. Those people that's their first year was last year, their first year was 22. It was interesting to see. Let's just put it that way. It was interesting to see their reaction and how they took in this SHOT Show, since we had more of the normal regular stuff, right? Attendance was, you know, up considerably compared to last year. I mean, working the aisles and everything else was, a little bit more difficult navigating things around. Um, you had, like I said, the parties were back and forth, the after events and things like that. So it was, I don't know, it was interesting to see that those folks, their process and trying to adapt to it, right? Because it was something totally different than what they experienced for the very first time. And we kind of warned them of that going in. We're like, hey, no, you had a good show last year and you enjoyed it, but keep in mind that we don't know what to expect this year, and you know it's going to be different. And it was definitely, SHOT Show is back, I guess you could say.
All right, so you're looking at it from a little different than I was thinking. So I'm thinking, as far as the industry and politics and gun owners and the industry being the uh, brunt of the attacks. The show wasn't like political. It wasn't defensive. It wasn't defeatist, and it wasn't um, so, what's the word, like the opposite of defeatist, like unnecessarily like boastful or whatever. Like it was like business as usual on like almost every front. There was no reaction to politics, and it's not a political show, but there have been times when the braces have been under attack. That's probably the only time I can think of. Maybe sometimes when ammo is under attack, importation of ammo, where I don't know, marketing or conversations will kind of slant towards, whatever pressure we might be under at the time, or focus we might be under, scrutiny we might be under as ownership. There's times when the industry will essentially put its tail between its legs and just sit there looking like a beat dog because the politics have decided to wail on us, or gun owners or something. And the industry's tendency is to just take it and weather the storm. None of that was happening this time. And I think that's an interesting, I mean, I don't know if it's good or bad. It's interesting that it wasn't a factor. And am I missing anything? Did you see any? I mean, like you kind of mentioned with the reaction of people that you saw to the politicians, it kind of lends itself to what I was saying, that it seemed kind of neutral without
Yeah.
without being completely sterile. It was just neutral. Like it didn't let
I mean, they
the
were
outside world
there.
didn't influence.
Yeah, they were there, but it's like people were more interested in the show than they were, seemed like, than hanging out or whatever with a politician. Sometimes you get
Or
like, what's
even just
going
hanging
on
out
over
with
there, right? There's like a crowd of people, and it's like, what's going on over there? And it's like, there's a celebrity or there's a politician. You know what I'm saying? I've seen that in the past at shows. And, the politicians I seen or whatever, celebrities, minor celebrities, whatever, that wasn't the case. Like, and maybe there was just timing. Maybe I just didn't see it. That's entirely possible.
Well, it was just wasn't. It didn't seem like I was walking around a lot, so I think I would have seen things that happen in
Right. Right.
spontaneously or whatever, because
Yeah.
I did. And the things like you're saying, there'll be crowds of people, and it'll be because booth babe is doing something, or a guest at the booth is doing something or signing something. But this time, it would be just as likely to be like some Black Rambo or some YouTube celebrity doing something, as it was a competitive shooter, as it is a
True.
war veteran, as it is a hunter, as it is the boss of the company who's, it wasn't because of anything. It was just, these little things would happen, these little gatherings would happen at whatever times. And it wasn't like the whole show was going to stop because Trump's kid was going to show up or something like that. And it's never been like that, but it definitely wasn't even close to being anything in any direction like that. And I think that just says something about the industry in general and where we're at. Like I said, I don't know if that's good or bad. There was some attempt with Gun Owners of America and FPC to, be there at the show, the Second Amendment Foundation, and to some extent. But I think FPC, Craig DeLuz specifically, just were as effective as anybody's ever been with Second Amendment at the show this year, doing a series of 10-minute interviews at Media Row, or the hallway that they give us for media, that were very effective. So being a non-political, non-right to a Second Amendment rights type of show, it's strictly for industry. They did great, a great job, the best job that's been done at bringing some of that into the show in a palatable way. It's sort of like YouTube Shorts, like they're just there. Nobody's going to get too upset because they're only 15 minutes long, and they're just effective. They're not exclamatory or accusatory or anything that would get people upset. They're just stating some facts along with the show. I think they really did some headway on bringing 2A to the show without going against the grain or trying to add something that everybody's going to be have a problem with. But sometimes it's like, it's all about me, or it's all about our issue, or it's all about our interpretation of the issue. And that can just get on people's nerves, and people just aren't there for that.
Yeah.
So Millsurp is saying it would be, or I would say last year being my first SHOT Show compared to this year, he liked this one a lot better. There's more of it for sure. I hear you.
Right.
As far as new product, I guess plenty of it this year. Not so much of it that it was all gimmicks and marketing, but enough of it to be interesting and to find things, little kernels, little gems, and then like the evolution of some tech and stuff. So there was a good mix of interesting things and not just hype at this year's show.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
All right. Well, I threatened to make this thing just an hour, and we're already over. So we'll wrap this thing up. I'll let Clover come up with whatever he wants to plug on being sprung on it like this. And then stay tuned for another chat next week. If we missed anything in the comments, feel free to let us know, and we'll address them next week.
I don't have a whole lot to plug. I mean, thanks for the invite, and enjoyed the conversation. I'm sure there'll be more over the coming days or whatever. Again, I'm just rolled in last night, so still kind of processing things. As far as content, I'll start editing and stuff today and look for some things over the next couple of weeks rolling out. That's about all I can say. And then things that were put in motion at the show. We'll see those roll out over the next few months or whatever. So, thanks for the invite.
Yeah, thanks for jumping in. Mike was asking if you wanted to be his partner for doing interviews at NRAM. So we got plenty of time for that one. Do some coaching, but I don't think Clover's. I don't know. Are you doing one-on-one coaching?
Can.
Okay.
I really, I have done some one-on-one coaching. So it just kind of depends. I mean, I spent yesterday, the issues that happened with your channel and some other stuff. So I've kind of been doing that even while I was on the road. I was, doing things like that. So yeah, certainly can. Just reach out to me.
Yeah, I was going to say though that maybe watch some people, but one of the coolest things about shows is you can watch people do their thing, and you don't have to be attached to them. You can just watch them do their thing and then maybe even stand at one booth and just watch people come up and interview them. You'll see a whole bunch of different people interview the same person. So you'll see the different styles kind of stand out, or just kind of walk around and you'll just notice here's somebody being interviewed. Here's somebody being interviewed. And, you know, you can, I've learned enough about what not I'm never going to do by watching other people do their thing. Like, I'm
This
like,
is
oh,
true.
okay, I'm never going to do that. Like, I'm never
That's
going to carry
silly.
that camera around. Yeah, exactly.
Right. Yeah. Uh-huh.
So I don't think I would, and that's why I'm just saying, like, I don't think I would get as much from watching one person do their thing over and over than like watching them do their thing once or twice. But then I would just go off and start figuring it out, because it's seriously just talking to people who are there to talk to you. So it's not, there's not much to it other than, like, you know, when to turn your camera on or how to hold your camera, or, you know, when to, how, clever way to give them the mic or something.
Right.
But we'll talk about that kind of stuff in these shows. That's what it's all about.
Yep.
So thanks everybody for watching and listening. We'll have another SHOT Show Thursday evening, kind of prime time, so that everybody doesn't have to stay up all night, but late enough so that the West Coast doesn't have to take off work to see it either. So I'll invite a bunch of people on for like an evening, late afternoon, early evening chat on Thursday to talk about SHOT Show and their results and their what's next.